Work-Based Learning Collaborative Series webinar. Michael, I wonder if you could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. All right, so once again, welcome to the Work-Based Learning Collaborative Series webinar. My name is Veronica Newton. I'm with the Agency of Education. I will be facilitating today's webinar along with Michael Brownstein, part of our Vermont Professional Learning Network, as well as the Center for Collaborative Education. Today's webinar is designed to provide time to further collaborate with our colleagues and share promising practices around work-based learning programs across the state. Next slide. Today's webinar is sponsored by the Vermont Agency of Education and the Vermont Professional Learning Network. The session is being recorded, and a link of the recording will be shared with the Work-Based Learning Collaborative. Today we will be learning from Bill Laidlaw with Montpelier High School, Pam Hemingway, Essex High School, and Jason Finley with the Randolph Technical Career Center. The session presenters have taken innovative strides in developing, implementing, and sustaining work-based learning programs to align with Act 77's initiatives, meet the demands of Vermont's economic and workforce development needs, and provide opportunities for all learners to achieve post-secondary readiness. At the heart of each of these innovations is a commitment to providing equitable access to high-quality educational experiences that acknowledge individual goals, learning styles, and abilities. Once again, we'd just like to thank in advance for all of the presenters joining us today. We're really looking forward to this hour together. Next slide, please. So the purpose of today's webinar is to advance the sharing of effective practices around work-based learning programs in Vermont and to collectively brainstorm issues regarding education and workforce relationships. Participants will acquire strategies and processes from their colleagues around implementing work-based learning experiences in their school systems, as well as collectively generate a list of questions for employers and Department of Labor personnel to be addressed at the March regional meetings. Next slide, please. Today's presentations will focus on effective practice. Each presentation will be about 10 minutes in length, and then there will be 5 minutes time for questions and answers. You will have an opportunity to ask questions via the chat box throughout the webinar. And as questions occur to you, we ask that you please share them in the chat box. Michael will be facilitating the questions with the presenters after each presentation. So now we are going to learn from Bill Laidlaw, a member of the community-based learning team at Montpelier High School. Thanks, Bill. Next slide.
Good morning. Hi, my name is Bill Laidlaw. I am a special educator here at Montpelier High School. I am also a member of the community-based learning team here. A little history about myself. I've been a special educator in Vermont for 22 years. I started out working with students identified as having emotional disturbance, and that was the track I was on for many years. And when I came to Montpelier High School, I decided to try out a transition specialist position, and so here I am talking about equitable opportunities for all students and how the CBL team works through that. So I am tasked with sharing the program and equitable practices of Montpelier High School and its CBL program. Next slide. I want to share ways in which the CBL program creates equitable opportunities for all students. And starting out with this quote, there are many variables that enable or hinder students' abilities to access regular school curriculum. So offering opportunities without supports does not provide equitable access for all students. And with work-based learning programs, there are, of course, added variables that increase the need to consider equitable access for all students. Next slide. So I included the Montpelier High School's mission statement and values in this presentation just to highlight what we want for our students. The mission statement and values are also the foundation for how we, the CBL team, approach learning and how we educate our students in creating an infrastructure that works best. So in order for all of our students to be capable, motivated contributors, as our mission statement points out, we have to create an infrastructure where students can have equitable access given their individual needs. Next slide. The CBL department, which is a branch within the MHS Flexible Pathways program, is structured and supported by the administration, the school board, and in order to provide equitable access and resources for all students who wish to access personalized, flexible, and community-based learning opportunities. Next slide. And here's kind of a roadmap of what our Flexible Pathways program looks like. Currently, there are 5 flexible pathways on the top, and there are 3 targeted resources underneath there at the bottom of the page. So if you go across from left to right, you see the community-based learning column. There's independent studies, high school online learning, extended learning opportunities, and dual enrollment. And then there are 3 other areas at the bottom of the page. You can see Introduction to College Studies, which is a CCC course that is quite popular with our juniors and seniors, early college, and then the Central Vermont Career Center, which is our branch technical school in Barrie. Next slide. So underlying the CBL department's operational practices, we have a desire to pay attention to equity, and we define equity as the practice of supporting students with what they need in order to access learning. And this approach differs from providing students with equal resources regardless of need. So the 5 bulleted categories are potential areas that support our practices to provide equitable community-based learning experiences for students here at MHS. We have staffing, transportation, curriculum, individualized education plans, and then other. So these are the areas that I'm going to focus on in the presentation today. Next slide. So first of all, with our staffing, this is our community-based learning team. There's 1 licensed special educator, transition specialist, that's me, and then 2 licensed teachers, Matt McLean and Sarah Lovelace, and we have 1 instructional assistant, Katrina Phillips. And we're all unique in our abilities and our interests, which really supports our collective efforts. Our individual talents and resources, when we bring them together, and our shared values that we have around learning allow us to serve a significant percentage of our student body each semester. For instance, this semester, we have 64 students enrolled in the CBL class this semester, which is roughly about 20% of our student body. Next slide. The next component, of course, is transportation. I'm sure that's a variable with every work-based learning program in public schools. We approach transportation. We have a unique ability to provide transportation throughout the school day. We have 1 van specifically for transporting students who are receiving specialized student services, and 2 vans dedicated to transporting CBL students during the school day. And of course, those vans are also used for after-school programs. So we share the load of paying for that transportation. But for instance, with our specialized services van, the school realized that it's much more cost-effective and less expensive for actually the whole district to transport students to alternative programs outside of the school in our own van than to actually pay other companies or taxis to transport those students. We saved roughly $100,000 last year because we have our own van. And the funding for the other 2 vans is shared by another group called Community Connections, which is an organization that uses the vehicles for after-school programming. So we really had to be creative to find ways to fund the transportation, but those vans are available to us throughout the entire school day from about 8:30 to 3. So we have 3 vehicles available to us, which really does support equity. The next point of access is our curriculum, and you're looking at. Sorry, next slide. This slide that you're looking right now here is a model of the MHS learning expectations, and we approach our curriculum in the CBL program. There are 3 areas that are circled there within our learning expectations where we measure proficiency in. One is self-awareness, the other is preparedness, and lastly, accountability and responsibility under the citizenship LE. So our CBL curriculum is intentionally designed so that all students have access to the same learning goals. Those are the 3 learning areas that we're measuring, regardless of their ability level. Next slide. As well as the learning expectations, our curriculum is also set up where we bring all of our students who participate in CBL together in a class called CBL Seminar, and students enrolled in this class participate in seminar in small cohorts as a learning community twice a month to help them unpack, share, and reflect on individual experiences that they're having at their respective community placements. Activities and performance tasks are associated with seminar. They help to bridge the community placement experiences with the MHS learning expectations. Again, self-awareness, citizenship responsibility, and preparedness. Next slide. The CBL class is an integral part of students' IEP and transition plans. So I included this slide just for my pieces. There's a seamless part of our curriculum where, because I'm working directly with the CBL department, I can take the work that we're doing in CBL and add it right to students' IEP and transition plans. So up here on the slide, you can see some education and employment goals that are written directly in relation to the community-based learning program. It does dovetail quite nicely. Next slide. Here are some other intentional practices that the CBL department uses. We have a year-round offering for our CBL class. There's a summer class. It's much smaller and more refined than what's offered throughout the school year, but students have an opportunity to enroll in the CBL course. We do aspirational development or career interest inventories, and also because we measure self-awareness, there are a lot of other assessments and inventories that we have the students take as formative assessments, so that we are measuring self-awareness. And one of the cool things is the guidance department and the CBL team get together every November, and we gather all the sophomores, and they do a career interest inventory as a whole class. And I use the results on those inventories in students' IEPs, and the results from those inventories go into their PLPs. Another really cool thing about our department is we have a collaborative workspace, so our office is set up so we're all in the same office throughout the day, unless we're out in the community or working in seminars. So it really does encourage innovation and support and problem solving and efficient use of shared resources. We're constantly tapping into each other's thinking and resources in order to support all of our students equitably. There will be, hopefully in the coming year, a merging of the various flexible pathways into one department. So we're actually going to be just expanding the CBL department to include the staff who work in flexible pathways. And we are adding another 1.0 to our school budget for next year, FTE, which is kind of exciting as well. And yes, the FTE configuration is also allows us to have more flexibility in who we work with. So I am actually 0.5 special education and 0.5 regular ed. which allows for flexibility in who I work with. And the CBL department can work with students who have disabilities too, as long as we're all collaborating together, as I'm the licensed special educator in that department, as long as I'm overseeing that work. Just creates for a greater capacity to serve students. Next slide. And again, just the last thing I wanted to say about is, if we go back to the beginning, is offering opportunities without support does not provide equitable access for all students. So that's my presentation. I hope you got a lot out of it, maybe some nuggets, and I thank you so much for listening.
Bill, I have two questions for you. The first one is, how could people get a copy of your pathways?
Flexible pathways?
Yep.
The model itself?
Yep.
I can get a copy of PDF and I can email it to you if you'd like to distribute it. Would that be best?
Great. That sounds wonderful.
Okay, good.
And then the second question is, you seem to have a very well developed flexible pathway. How long did it take to create, and what were lessons learned? If you could do that, answer that.
The flexible pathways model itself?
Yes.
It's been about 5 years in the making, and that's a really good question. I'm assuming that the flexible pathways model is going to be a living model that's constantly going to be changing as the needs of our students change and our resources change. So, and the flexible pathways model is only as strong as the faculty and staff who are working within it. So based on the skill sets of the folks who are here working in the building right now, that may also have a factor in that. So yes, it did take a long time to build, and it's a moving target, I think, which is appropriate.
Great, thank you so much. And now we'd like to invite Pam Hemingway to share information about her Career Talk series.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's so exciting to see all the names that have joined us today, the ones I know. It's so great to see the new names too. So hello, and we know that networking is so important for our students, and it's a wonderful thing for them to learn. And the Career Talk series allows my students the opportunity to do that, and that's for all our Essex High School students and Center for Technology Essex students. So that's what my goal was. Next slide, please. I want to give you a little brief description of the background of why I started this program. Prior to becoming Essex High School's Career Development Coordinator, I was fortunate enough to co-teach with incredible professionals at Navigate. I truly believe that we learn from each other, and so because of that, our enrollment grew at Essex High School. So my district decided to hire somebody within to take over and oversee all our internship students. We have, 100 to 150 per year that would like to have internship experiences. I was lucky enough to be offered this position, and one of my major goals was to create career exploration for all students. I didn't care what school they were from, what age, what ability. I wanted all students to have an opportunity to come together and to learn together. And so that's why my first year, I decided I would, or my second year, create this Career Talk series. To be honest, when you look at the school year 2016-2017, I had too many speakers, which created that watered down scenario. I didn't have enough students to attend because, as you'll learn later, it's the chunk of time of the day that they can meet with other teachers that they're having some, need some extra support or to redo some tests. So I was feeling like I was doing too much and I wasn't getting the students that I needed. I also decided that I needed to do some changes for school year 17 and 18. So this year I only have 2 per month, and that depends on our scheduling. So in January, I'm actually having one today from Champlain College. It's a data scientist that's coming in to talk to our students. And I only having one this month because we had exams in the end of the semester, and it's very busy for many schools in Vermont, so I chose just to have one. And I'm also now working really closely with our 3 academy leaders to talk about what speakers they would like, and working with our Center for Technology co-op coordinators to say, hey, in your programs, you guys have some great guest speakers. Let's have them come in also. So those are some changes that have gone on the last 3 years. Next slide, please. Where to find speakers? I'm going to tell you, I talk it up. Everybody's a target. I talk to our local employers in Essex. I'm so fortunate that I know many of them. I reach out at faculty meetings and I ask for advice on who they would like to come in for their students. I talk to every internship supervisor that I come across and see if they would like to come in and talk to our students and at a broader range than just the internship student that they have. I talk to our students' parents at parent-teacher conferences, at ball games, you name it. Again, they're my target audience also. And then I always do a write-up in our local paper about what's coming up for Career Talks, but then also I have a picture with how it went in our local paper for that next month so that students can see and our community can see that people are coming. From putting it in the local paper, I actually have people reach out to me and say, hey, I'd love to come and talk to your students. When will it fit into your schedule? So just by talking it up and networking with many people, I seem to have so many speakers and I don't have enough dates. Next slide, please. Let's talk a little bit about the nitty-gritty, the specifics. So many of you, I'm sure, have a callback time. Ours is in the middle of the day. It's from 10:50 to 11:20. Every week, the first day of the week, we see our advisory students. So that's when the students can self-select to attend a career talk or go see any teachers. So many teachers will bring their entire class. Again, I invite CTE programs. I always email all the CTE coordinators and also reach out to those programs and those high school teachers that maybe that talk would be really great for their students. And a lot of students now have included the career talk as a requirement for an assignment. For example, our Careers in Computers class, that's a required class for all students. They have each student attend a career talk, and that's a requirement of their career exploration unit, which is about a 5-week unit that they research one career or multiple careers, and then they present on that. Advertising, I have a great graphic designer that helps me, and he creates these flyers that go around the school. I put in our daily announcements that are on our website also. Again, local paper, and I email to all teachers, all support staff in every school that's associated to Essex High School. Slide, please. I wanted to show you what my flyers look like. I have them printed off on 11 by 17 sheets of paper. And some of the speakers that I have had is in November, I decided I was going to focus on all our military branches in honor of Veterans Day. And this is a change from last year. I was finding that our military recruiters were contacting me frequently, and I wanted to really support them. So I came up with the idea of the month of November. I had a 2-week period where I just booked them one every day, and I had a lot of students who came in to come and hear a little bit about what the military has to offer for them. So that's something I will continue to do next year, because not only did our school like it, but our military branches liked it too. So that's a little nugget for you if you think that this is something you'd like to do at your school. I've had a physical therapist and an athletic trainer come in together and talk about the difference between those two, because students, I'm not really sure if they truly understand the difference between the education and what you do in each of those professions. I've had a digital forensics person come in, nursing, pharmaceutical, accounting, and other business-related fields. I've had dog grooming. I've had an author and a journalist. I've had a vet come in. I've had green engineering, and I could go on and on and on. And you'll notice on that slide, the Comcast contact. She was supposed to be mine today. She canceled, so I found the data scientist that's coming in today instead. Stephanie's going to come in a different day, but she's really talking about careers for students coming right out of the high school, what she can offer them. So that will be exciting when I have her come in when we reschedule. And I don't know if there's a slide that says questions, but I'm ready for any questions that might come my way.
Pam, I have a couple of questions for you. One was, after the speakers come in, do you find that your students want to be placed with them in a job shadow?
So I do, depending on what students are there. So, and I would have to say when that happens, majority of the time, the guest speakers will say, absolutely, when can they come in? The one that just happened recently was our green engineer. It's a local company, and they actually took an intern. So again, I'm having these guest speakers come in that maybe I don't know, and all of a sudden they're becoming a mentor for our students, because they see how wonderful teenagers really are, and they really do want to learn about careers.
Could you explain the careers and computer course? Is the course required for all students? What grade level, and is the career exploration unit part of this course?
Yeah, so luckily I could talk about that because when I was a business educator, this was a course that I taught. It's been changed, the names have been changed multiple times. So it's a class that all students must take. We encourage ninth graders to take it. There's kind of a twofold with this class. A lot of it is computer skills, because our teenagers believe they know a lot about computers, and they do. But do they know the professional aspects of how you use a computer? I find as though maybe they don't, or they don't see the relevance. And so this career exploration unit is part of that class. They combine internet skills, research skills, how to research properly, how to take good notes. They do a research paper with a works cited page, and then they need to present professionally. So, you know, not a lot of bullets, almost like a TED Talk. They're trying to really get them out of having too many words and more pictures and diagrams on their slides. So for some of these students, it's the first time that they've had to write a research paper at a different level and present a little bit more professionally. So all students, all abilities, this is a course they have to take before they graduate from Essex High School.
Great, and I have one last question for you. Do you or could you videotape these career talks and post them for additional access?
That's a great suggestion. Thank you, whoever asked that. You know, I could probably do that with permission from my speakers. So I'm going to write that down, and if it's something that my speaker today will do, I will do that, and then I'll get that information, Michael, maybe to you, and we can figure out how to let people know where it is. I'll probably try to post it on my website, but maybe let everybody know that I've done that. That's a great idea. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Pam, for sharing your ideas. Now I'd like to turn it over to Jason Finley to talk about community and work-based learning at his school.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you. Originally, I was planning on talking just about our new college and career lab here at Randolph Tech. However, the more I thought about it, the more I thought it would make sense to share how my work fits into the overall goal of RTCC and helping students develop personalized career pathways. And so, as work-based learning coordinators, most of us already have or will be involved in a student's plan to achieve what the AOE has identified as the goals of college and career readiness, right? The goals of meeting PBGRs, developing transferable skills, engaging them in community civic engagement. These goals are at the heart of community and work-based learning, right? It's who we are and what we do. But my goal here today is I want to share around that idea is three important things that might not require any change in your practice, but maybe will influence you to think differently about your practice and about how you track and use the outcomes for students and for your school. Next slide, please. So here's what we do at RTCC around college and career readiness. So the work-based learning, the co-ops, the internships, that's the bread and butter of what I do. Industry recognized credentials are also something that I support. Goal setting and reflection with students, informational interviews, job shadows, dual enrollments. All this probably looks pretty familiar to everyone listening today. It's our commonalities, right? Like, this is what we do. Next slide, please. But in thinking about this, like, this is all great stuff. But here's the big question that here at Randolph Tech that we asked ourselves. Can we meet the college and career readiness goals with work-based learning? We could do that, right? But are we really hitting the mark on what we want to achieve for students? The answer was no. Work-based learning doesn't hit the college and career readiness goals that we're hoping for. And so we're looking at ways that, like, a college and career readiness could be a little bit more. So my work-based learning program was doing what it was designed to do, but not all that it could do, and helping students to meaningfully explore and prepare for a career pathway. And that pathway piece is probably the most important piece of my new thinking around work-based learning. Next slide, please. And so each year, students are a little bit shocked when they come in and I tell them that I have no interest in finding them a job or putting them into an internship. And instead, what I tell them is, I want to help you discover and prepare for a career path, to help you make informed decisions and start to build the skills necessary for ongoing success well beyond and well after you leave Randolph Tech. And so in order to align, however, what I was telling students with what I actually did, we had to ask ourselves these three questions. One, can students identify areas and opportunities in their career field of interest where they have strong aptitude? So translate for a student, they'd hear it like this: let's find out what you want to do and see if it's a fit. Two, the second question, do students have a detailed, personalized map of both pre and post-secondary pathways towards a career? Again, translated, we found what you want to do. Now, what skills, IRCs, additional experiences do you need? And how do you get those? And what's your plan to work with our school counselor to figure out what's the best post-secondary options for you for where you're heading? And then the third question we asked ourselves, can students demonstrate the knowledge and skills to navigate that map independently? We can help them now, right? But what about once they leave here? And so students, we ask them, like, okay, you have the academic skills, you have the technical skills, but what about your employability skills and your life skills? And so those are things that we feel if the student can successfully navigate those three questions, then they're truly college ready and well on their path. And for us, that's where work-based learning has its merit as being part of something more comprehensive. Next slide, please. And so this is the most important thing I want to share today, is that for me, while work-based learning is a great opportunity to meet PBGRs and develop the transferable skills, it also has the potential to do so much more when it's integrated across all areas of the student's experience, and it can have a really synergistic effect, and we've seen that on their college and career readiness and pathway planning. So that's the crux, is this integration into this larger planning process. And so viewed from a systems perspective, in my opinion, my role should be to, one, better inform individual students in their personalized learning planning while in high school. The second part of my role is to help inspire aspirations beyond high school and help students make more intentional and informed choices about post-secondary education. So I'm not the college person, but I need to help inform their decisions for when they work with those individuals. And the third is to help ensure students have the successful skills to successfully navigate post-secondary aspirations. Do they have those employabilities and life skills that I talked about earlier? And so this perspective doesn't really change what I do with students, but it changes what I should learn from the outcomes, what I should learn, because work-based learning experiences should inform the student in one aspect, but even more so perhaps, it should inform me and how our entire school works with supporting that student. Next slide, please. And so in thinking about this, we looked around, like, what systems are out there that already exist, right? Because there's a lot of people out there that are a lot smarter than I am. So I looked around and see who had this figured out. So here in Vermont, CLIC, formerly known as the Upper Valley Business and Education Partnership, and their TIPS program, It's been around for years. It's time tested. It's well respected across the state. Vermont Works for Women has a Step into Work curriculum, and it's awesome. It's this comprehensive career exploration and preparation curriculum, and it's well worth your time looking more into that. But the system that I was most heavily influenced by was out in Augustana, out in the Quad Cities. There's a college that uses something called the Viking Score, and it's this great career development tool where students keep track of simple career attendance, career fair attendance, attending lunch and learns, working one-on-one with their career counselors, and more. Each of these activities is assigned a point value. And so I called them up and say, hey, what's this Viking Score that you're using with your students? And what they shared with me was they found that over 4 years, students have the potential to earn about 100 points in this Viking Score. And what they found was awesome, and it really supports our work and where we're heading as a school, is that 2 students who graduate in 4 years from the same major, took the same electives, and side by side, their transcripts were mirror images. The students who are on the lower end, that 0 to 20 range, they're sitting in their parents' basement still. The students who were kind of middle range, they were receiving job offers, but not necessarily related to the degree, or that there might even be a degree required. But the students in that 80 to 100 point range, those students who are really engaged in career development, they were receiving multiple job offers related to the degree. They had just the pick of the litter to choose from for the students. Again, transcripts were identical. It was all about the career development and taking advantage of those opportunities. So that's where, next slide, please. A couple of years ago, we developed the CROW score. So that's our version of the Viking score. And what this was is a series of opportunities for students to through scaffolded learning, do career exploration and skill development, and there was elements of choice in it. And when we broke it down to 4 levels: exploration. Once the student worked through there, then they can go out and do a job shadow. We call that observation. Once they work through that level, they could do the actual experience and then maintain the placement. Year 1 was successful. We found that teachers liked the focus of it and the specificity, and that students were engaged in the process. It almost became game-like. They wanted to earn their points so they can go on to that next level. The second year, we found that we had to personalize the CROW score a little bit because individual programs had different needs and different curricula. We wanted to make sure that we were meeting the needs of instructors. And so we wanted to be more seamlessly embedded in those programs. And so more programs started using. Now, not every program used it then or now, but as we evolve its use, we're seeing that use grow as we evolve the CROW score program. So the next slide, please. So now we're feeling pretty good about this. And so we asked ourselves, in considering the evolution of the CROW score, are we hitting the mark yet, right? Are students college career ready? And the answer is still no, right? So here's why. The CROW score is part of a system, but it's still really in its own silo. It's not part of the overall system. It's not integrated, and it wasn't reaching that full potential that we're hoping for and doing what it could. Next slide, please. And so this is where we're at now. First, we determined that standalone work-based learning activities were not sufficient. Then we determined that a standalone program was not sufficient. And what we've realized is what we need to do, what we need to understand is that work-based learning is a means of supporting college and career readiness through an integrated system of career pathway development, and work with multiple players within, with stakeholders within the school and beyond the school. And I give the AOE a hard time a lot of the time, but they really do a lot of good work. And I love their definition here of college and career readiness. I stole this from their website. College and career readiness is defined as the foundational skills and learning strategies necessary to begin studies in a career pathway. It's that pathway focus, that bigger picture, systems thinking, process-oriented pathway development that we're now focusing our work-based learning efforts around. Next slide, please. So, in considering work-based learning's role in college and career readiness within a larger career development system, things just kind of fell into place for us. We already had the CROW score as a foundation that's evolved into our College and Career Labs offerings. We're building this 20 plus data-based college and career readiness indicators, a system for monitoring that, because we know they have a synergistic effect on students' post-secondary aspirations. So for example, in the Career Center, we know data shows that CTE students who take a dual enrollment course are twice as likely to enroll in college. So if that's our, or in post-secondary aspirations, I should say, if that's our goal, we need to make sure that that's offered to students. And if our goal is to dual enrollment, we have to make sure that they're prepared to take the acuplacer, right? So it's a number of different data indicators that are all synergistic and interrelated. And third, and this is kind of like this happy accident. So in building this monitoring system of these indicators, we've developed a tool that we hope that will allow us as a school to measure our own progress in meeting the AOE EQS benchmarks in college and career readiness indicators. So that's something that we're working on. We're going to see how that plays out. Regardless, it's a great tool for us here in the school to collaborate around. So far this year, about half of our programs now participate every single week in college and career lab workshops. So out of the 12 programs, half of our students come in every week to do college and career readiness and work on these, hitting these benchmark indicators. And here's how this looks. So this was a student from last year. She was in our diversified ag program. She wanted to take part in a job shadow in the dairy industry, so she worked up to that point in the CRO score where she could go out in the job shadow, and she came back and she's like, oh, I love this. And so she took an online course in dairy production management. We helped her with that, which then spurred an interest in artificial insemination, which then led to a hands-on course in level 1 certification provided by GenX, which is one of our industry partners, which led to more artificial insemination job shadows, which led the student to realizing that she loved the dairy industry, but not necessarily working on the business end of a cow, but instead she would rather work on the business side of the cow. And so she's enrolled at VTC's Agri Business Management Program. And when she was started, she was adamant she wasn't going to college. And I don't think it was any one of these pieces that really pushed her to go to college. I think it was the combination of all of them that influenced her pathway. And so if we could go to that next slide, please. And so this is how we're looking to keep track of this. So Ethan Allen, right? Great Vermonter. So when we work with a student, 1 year, 2 years, we're keeping this college and career readiness indicators spreadsheet, and we're looking at how the work that I do as a work-based learning coordinator fits into the work of our school counselor, right? And you'll see that by doing this, it's really a systems approach to planning the students' college and career readiness and that pathway development, and that really none of these things should be standalone, that they all should be integrated and lead to something else, and really oftentimes they're necessary to lead to that other piece. Next slide, please. And so, like I said, this is that last piece. This not only helps students, not only helps us as a school better support them, but we're hoping that that we're able to meet those AOE EQS in college and career readiness indicators, which would be great. That's a happy outcome. But really, what we want to do is help students create those career pathways, and work-based learning is simply a tool, at least for me, to help a student develop those. Next slide. Thank you. So to wrap up, what I hope that I accomplished, at least in part, is sharing my belief in these 3 ideas. One, that work-based learning should be integrated across all areas of a student's educational experience. And 2, that there are tremendous benefits of tracking and collaboratively using college and career readiness data in our work. And 3, I hope that there's some potential in using this data as indicators in meeting AOE EQS. And that's a lot. I was excited, so I talked quick, but thank you for your time. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to share out like CRO version 1.0, our template of our spreadsheet for the data wall, our college and career readiness indicator data wall spreadsheet, and also our current college and career lab workshops. And that's
Thank you, Jason. Jason, I have a few questions for you.
Okay.
One is, how could we get a copy of your college and career readiness graphic?
Yeah, so I can send that out as a PDF or a Word document, or if I can send it to you and you can share that out. Like I said, that's really, those College and Career Lab offerings are really CROW version 3.0. I'm happy to share out, like I said, the original CROW worksheet that we have, our current College and Career offerings, and that our spreadsheet that we use.
Great, thank you. Just send it to me and I'll forward it to the group.
Sure.
Question number 2, how does the student data collected at your school data wall transfer to students sending high school?
So that's actually, Jen, our guidance coordinator, that's our school counselor, she works with our sending schools on those pieces, particularly the career preparation or the college preparation pieces. Right now, the work-based learning side of that is just in-house. I'd be happy to share anything with anybody. I actually have a data wall in my room that doesn't have student names but has codes, so I know who each student is. And if a sending school wanted to come in, I could just simply go through all their students with them. But right now, it's up in an unidentifiable way other than to me.
Great. I have 2 other questions. One is, how do you work with work-based learning coordinators at the sending high schools that send students to your school?
So I'm always, since I've been here at Randolph Tech, I've always been happy to discuss different options that are out there. If I had some, training plans, say, hey, do you have a training plan for this, and share it, or questions about, is it legal to place this student in this type of position, and if not, how do we make sure that we're meeting labor laws? So I'm always happy to work with sending school work-based learning coordinators or community-based learning coordinators. And I work a lot with Voc Rehab, with VR, and collaborate with them and their work, because I always push students to work with me and VR, because I share that, come summertime, I'm on the beach in Maine, or once they graduate, I'm more than happy to help them, but VR is going to be there for them long term and every day of the year, as opposed to the school year with me. So I'm all about collaboration any way I can, and hopefully look forward to doing more.
Great. And one last question. What does your typical day look like as the work-based learning coordinator at your school?
So I generally have a calendar that I schedule in times for individual programs to come in, like their weekly times to come in. But then I do a lot of one-on-one work. Like, so if I do a resume workshop with a program, I'll have to follow that up with individual students to really tweak out and dig into what their aspirations are, what some of their skill sets are, what their plans are. And that resume tool, the resume for me is a tool for the foundations of that pathway planning, about what their aspirations are and what kind of certifications they hope to earn. But yeah, so a lot of one-on-one stuff in between the scheduled classes. And then of course, going out and doing the site visits.
Great, thank you, Jason. I would like to thank Jason and Pam and Bill for sharing their effective practices with us today, and I'd like to turn over the webinar to Veronica.
Hi, thanks again, Bill, Pam, and Jason, and also for your willingness to share all of your resources. And so definitely the cohort will be receiving emails from both Michael and myself with regards to the graphics, as well as maybe potential links, Pam, for the recordings of the speakers and the flexible pathway PDFs, Bill, that you and your team have generated through Montpelier High School. We're going to spend a couple of minutes right now. We're going to ask for you to take advantage of the chat box and to generate a list of questions you have for employers and Department of Labor personnel to be addressed at the March regional meetings. Next slide, please. So in March, we have the March 1st meeting in Rutland, and then March 8th, we have the meeting up in Burlington. We're going to be having an employer panel discussion, and to help inform this discussion, we really want to hear from you in advance. And so the questions that you provide with us today in the chat box, we are going to then send along for the panel to address. And so while we have you in your undivided attention right now, we just want to take advantage of that and provide a couple of minutes for you to type in your questions in the chat box right now. All right, so there's about 4 minutes left, and we're going to spend, Michael and I are going to spend the rest of this time just kind of talking about upcoming events. We will keep the recording going for you after we finish the webinar today, if you want to just take advantage of this time to type in any additional questions you have for the upcoming webinars in March. We did receive a question around the webinar recording from last week. And so we will be sending both this week's webinar recording and last week's webinar recording together to the entire Work-Based Learning Collaborative within the upcoming weeks. And then eventually it will be posted onto the Agency of Education Work-Based Learning webpage And also this recording will be going out through the weekly field memo, and it will direct folks to the AOE webpage. Next slide. Michael, you want to take it away?
Sure. So we just wanted to remind you all that in March there will be regional meetings where you'll be, as part of the conversation, you'll be meeting with employers to talk about your programs. On March 1st, we'll be meeting at the Franklin Center in Rutland, Vermont. And in March 8th, we'll be meeting at the Holiday in Burlington. These are the sites of our earlier regional meetings. And then in June, we're scheduling a time for the whole group to come together and to share their learning over the year. We'll give you more information about those events at the March meetings. We just also wanted to share the contact information from today's presenters, as well as Veronica and my email addresses, in case you wanted to be in touch with them about other things that come up for you about what they shared today. We'd also like to thank people who are in the background helping us with our work. Allison Short, Kim Tejas, Krista Caro, and Gary Chapin. And just as a reminder, there will be other events that are being sponsored this year. Andrew Hargreaves will be giving a presentation on the power of collaboration and the impact on the implementation of education quality standards this spring on April 10th and June 19th. And Allison Zamuda will be giving a presentation on personalized learning. That'll be a back-to-back series for teachers wanting to deepen their practice. All these series will be held at Lake Moray Resort, and we'll be sending out links to you about these sessions in a separate email. We would like to thank you for your participation today at today's event, and look forward to seeing you this coming March.
Yeah, and once again, also if you have any additional questions that you would like to send for the March sessions, and they're not captured today in the chat box, please send an email to Michael and or myself, and we will be addressing those at the March sessions. And once again, thank you so much to the three presenters, as well as to all of the participants, and for engaging in this webinar this morning. We really look forward to seeing you March 1st and March 8th.